welcome back to the Hammy Show. We've got a very special episode for you. We're breaking down last weekend's game of college football. I was at Missouri Vanderbilt. It was an insane experience out there in Nashville, Tennessee. Such a fun game to attend, an atmosphere unlike anything I've ever seen in Vanderbilt Stadium. But we've got a list of games to go through, and then, of course, the coaching carousel. This is going to be one of the most wild coaching carousels in college football history, something that I've never seen in my lifetime, and people much older than me have probably never seen either. So let's kick it off with some game recaps, starting off right where I was, Missouri at Vanderbilt. The key to this game was Vanderbilt's defensive line. Ahmad Hardy came into the game as one of the nation's best running backs, averaging over 7 yards per carry, and Vanderbilt shut him down just enough. He still finished with 97 yards, but not getting to that 100-yard mark was what sealed the game for this Vanderbilt defense. It kept them in the ball game, kept them in control. And then I got to talk to Kirk Herbstreit before the game. He said, let Pavia loose. That was his key for Vanderbilt. One thing that they had to do right in order to get a dub against the Tigers. And that's just exactly what happened. When it came down to the wire, Diego Pavia was on the goal line and put it in the end zone for Vanderbilt's game-winning touchdown, eventual game-winning touchdown. He is the key. He is a Heisman favorite. Clark Lee and his Commodores, they are rolling right now. They go to Austin to take on Texas this coming weekend. A huge one for the Commodores. They're the number 9 team in the country. My grandfather was an undergrad graduate of Vanderbilt University, and for the first time in his life, born in 1940, the Vanderbilt Commodores got a win as a top 10 ranked team, and they stay in the top 10. How sweet is that? He's 85 years old, just had his 85th birthday. And, man, you can't not be happy for these Vanderbilt Commodores. So what a win for Clark Lee. What a Heisman statement for Diego Pavia. Maybe things weren't going all the way right for him, but he got his mojo back, and he found himself with a game-winning opportunity, and he capitalized. That's who Diego Pavia is. That's why he is at the top of his game, one of the top quarterbacks in all of college football. Moving right along, we got Texas A&M and LSU. This is the game that everyone's talking about, not because of the result, but because of the circumstances surrounding it. Yes, the result was emphatic, an emphatic win for the Texas A&M Aggies. Marcel Reed goes off. Mike Elko and his boys are rolling, and Texas A&M is on their way to an SEC championship and playoff berth, in my opinion. They're the number 2 in the SEC championship odds to win the title of the conference. Alabama is shortly ahead of them. After those two teams, it's quite a drop-off before Georgia, Ole Miss, Texas, and Vanderbilt come in next in the odds market. But A&M is a legit contender, and it's because of Marcel Reed, but it's also more so because of their defense. What we saw against Notre Dame, one of the best wins of the college football season, was a defense that struggled, a defense that allowed the Fighting Irish over 40 points on the offensive board. So this Texas A&M defense has taken a step forward. They have absolutely grown to this run-stopping force in the SEC, which is something that you have to have. They shut down LSU. LSU has struggled in the run game. Nussmeier struggled, and A&M just went out there and went to Death Valley at night and beat the Tigers like a drum. It was absolutely emphatic what they did on Saturday night. And to be honest, they controlled the game for the entirety of it, all 60 minutes. You may look at the halftime score, LSU's up. Well, A&M just made a few dumb mistakes and let LSU stay in that ball game. But if that were not, if it weren't for those couple interceptions, if it weren't for some dumb penalties, A&M would have rolled. They would have scored 50 plus, and it would have been one of the most blowout wins. I think the biggest blowout win in Death Valley at Tiger Stadium. This Texas A&M LSU final score 49-25. I think it's top 10 in Death Valley defeats. So A&M is chugging right along. But of course, what you want to hear about is the firing of Brian Kelly. Now, people have come out. They've said their opinions. They've gone through the scenarios of who their next head coach is. But I want to camp out on the subject of why Brian Kelly left. Why he was fired, rather. Well, it's because he was never bought in. And I'm not saying he wasn't bought in like the program or wasn't trying as a coach. No, he was never bought in the state of Louisiana. You see, when you wear the LSU logo, you put an entire state on your back. You put that entire university on your back. You've got one of the most crazed fan bases in all of college football, one of the great communities surrounding a team. And he was never really welcomed. He was never really bought in. Not only was he not, but the fans never bought in as well. And he quickly lost control. His hands were off the steering wheel all offseason as it's come out. He's golfing, he's on the beach, all this good stuff. And he is not in the LSU facility working with his guys, working with his team. And the second you take off your hands off the steering wheel at LSU, it's a car going off a cliff. It's an 18-wheeler running into a smart car. It is a train wreck. It's a dumpster fire. And it became evident in this LSU football season thus far. So Brian Kelly out at LSU. We're going to get into this coaching carousel. Who takes that job? But what a career for Brian Kelly at LSU. It was not what we expected. His counterpart, Marcus Freeman, who took his job in place of Brian Kelly once he was hired away from Notre Dame. Yet, Marcus Freeman just played for a national title at Notre Dame. He is on his way to probably another playoff appearance in 2025. He is cruising right along at Notre Dame, and everybody thought, oh no, Brian Kelly's leaving. What's going to happen? Well, guess what? Notre Dame is in great hands, and LSU is in a bunch of debt to Brian Kelly because they had to fire him. So, cheers to you, Notre Dame, for finding the right guy to replace Kelly, and you found a good one. Let me tell you that. Moving right along, we go to Ole Miss and Oklahoma. This is another coaching carousel subject, but we'll talk about the game first. The Lane train is rolling. After that loss to Georgia in Athens 2 Saturdays ago, Ole Miss recovers, Lane recovers, Trinidad Chambliss recovers, and the Rebels get a massive win in Norman, Oklahoma. The interesting part about this game was, the storyline was Lane versus Venables, Oklahoma defense versus Ole Miss offense. That offense versus defense contrast. Well, obviously the Ole Miss offense won the day. Ole Miss, Trinidad Chambliss, they are firing on all cylinders. That game against Georgia, they were firing on all cylinders. Trinidad Chambliss was put in a tough spot in Athens in one of the toughest environments and didn't respond like Gunnar Stockton responded. However, he goes to Norman, Oklahoma, he recovers, and he gets this massive win over the Sooners. Venables, what happens with the Oklahoma Sooners? Mateer played well. This was the timetable that was probably most expected for Mateer to actually return and be 100% healthy. He obviously comes back 2 weeks ago against Texas. Maybe a little too soon. That's up for debate. But Mateer comes out and he doesn't look half bad. He looks like his healthy self. But this Oklahoma defense could not stop the Ole Miss offense. And so the storylines that were pregame, they remain true during the game. Lane Kiffin, obviously one of the subject matters of this entire college football season. Will he leave Ole Miss? This LSU job opens, the Florida job opens. It's likely he probably stays in the SEC. In my opinion, he stays with Ole Miss. But we'll get into it. But does Venables' seat get hot? Does OU have a firing at their head coach position? We shall see. But we're just going to talk about the current ones, the current open jobs, and maybe a little prediction on where those guys end up. And then we're going to maybe talk about some added destinations. But we'll get into that in just a second. Stay tuned. Moving right along, South Florida at Memphis. The G5 championship, if you will. These two teams were at the forefront of the group of five, and Memphis gets the big win over South Florida. Alex Golish, Byron Brown, the quarterback coach duo there at South Florida, they have the lead, but Memphis, never count them out. Ryan Silverfield, head coach for the Tigers, they are in the driver's seat of this G5, and they will be in the college football playoff if all stands true, moving on right into November football. But this Memphis team is special. They've got the it factor. When they're down and out, they look like a Georgia team. A Georgia team that no matter how far down they are, no matter how deep of a hole they've dug themselves in, they can always come back. That's what Memphis has rolling for them. I'm excited to see this Memphis team go into this November slate of football games and then into the playoff. I think it's going to be an exciting year for this G5 team. Last year we saw Boise State come in, play a decent game in that first round against Penn State, in the second round against Penn State. But the interesting thing is they had one player, and that was who carried them to the playoff. I think this Memphis team is a much better, well-rounded team than that Boise State team of last year. So I'm excited to see Memphis as they make this playoff push in November. Then we got BYU and Iowa State. Bear Bachmeier, BYU's quarterback, the Fighting Mormon. He is a stud. He is America's QB1. He is the Mormons' QB1 right now, wearing 47. He is so fun to watch. He's got the legs. He's got the truck ability. I mean, he is laying dudes out on the gridiron. But as a passer, he's taken a massive step forward throughout the course of this season. 78.7 QBR. That's 18th in the nation. Everybody looks at him and thinks the runner that he is. Nah, Bear Bachmeier is a passing quarterback, and he showed it. 307 total passing yards in this game. Bear Bachmeier for Heisman? Question mark, we shall see. Iowa State, Matt Campbell, another coach on this coaching carousel. Rumors list, he's been rumored to have some Penn State interest, been rumored to have some interest at maybe LSU, maybe Florida, some of these top jobs across the country. But let me tell you one thing. Matt Campbell loves Iowa State, and Iowa State loves Matt Campbell. And it's one of those situations, we see it all across college football. A lot of these teams have coaches that they love, and a lot of these coaches love their team. We didn't see that at LSU with Brian Kelly. I don't think Matt Campbell is the fit in the SEC. However, that Penn State job is mighty intriguing for Coach Campbell. But for now, Iowa State, the Cyclones take another loss on the year. BYU gets a massive, massive win. They're undefeated on the season, and they are in control of the Big 12 right now. Flashback a few weeks ago, Texas Tech looked like they were going to run the table. They looked like they were the emphatic leaders in the pack at the Big 12. Well, BYU is sitting pretty right now. Now, their schedule was major backloaded. Front half of their schedule, quite a breeze. So we've seen these wins. This Iowa State game, though, was circled for everybody. It's at Iowa State. It's a hard place to play against a really good Iowa State team, a team that went to the Big 12 championship last year. So this was the chance for BYU to prove themselves, and they did. It looked like Iowa State's game, but then late in the fourth, BYU took control, wins 41-27. Huge win for the Cougars and the Mormons. But now we go to Texas and Mississippi State. What a heartbreaking defeat for the Bulldogs of the West. Mississippi State sold in probably the worst way we have seen this college football season. That is 3 heartbreaking losses for this Bulldogs team to Florida, to Tennessee in overtime, and then to Texas in overtime. They absolutely controlled this game, up 31-14 at one point, then I think 38-17 at another point, and Texas just comes on fighting back. Arch Manning doesn't have the worst day he's ever had. He goes for over 300 passing, but he gets injured on the first play of overtime. Matthew Caldwell comes in, throws the game-winning touchdown in OT. Is Matthew Caldwell the answer at Texas? I don't know, but here's my take on Arch. Arch is not bad, and he has a future ahead of him, especially at Texas. He's got the talent around him to take that step forward. Is it this year? Probably not. But I think this Texas team around him is the bad part of Texas. This O-line can't protect him. Mississippi State's defense got to Arch quite often in this game on Saturday night. Obviously, we saw the Barstool drama with Brandon Walker on the sidelines. In his face, Texas catches that game-winning touchdown in overtime. Heartbreaking for Brandon Walker. It's like something out of a movie what Barstool is doing right now. It's absolutely comical what happened to Brandon Walker. But you feel for Jeff Lebby because Jeff Lebby is a fantastic coach, and I think he's got Mississippi State moving in the right direction. I think this Mississippi State team will play ruiner to somebody along the way. Is it Ole Miss? Is it Ole Miss in the Egg Bowl? Think about this. Mississippi State comes into that game maybe 5-6. Ole Miss comes into that game 10-1. Ole Miss fighting for a playoff spot. Mississippi State fighting for a bowl game. That's like enough to get game day there. The Egg Bowl is one of the great rivalries in college football. One of my favorite. Thanksgiving night. God, it's beautiful. And for the Egg, this game has massive implications. in program-defining ways. Jeff Lebby and his Bulldogs, can he get them to a bowl game in year 2? Lane Kiffin and the Rebels, can he get the Rebels to a playoff appearance? Does that keep Lane in Ole Miss, in Oxford? The headlines surrounding that game should have College Game Day in Starkville for this game. It probably won't be because you got a 5-6 team against a 10-1 team, but man, how fun would it be to watch Jeff Lebby go against Lane Kiffin Thanksgiving night, and the implications surrounding it could be massive. Another team that sold, South Carolina, at home against Alabama. They take a 22-14 lead in the fourth quarter. Lenore Sellers rushing touchdown. Willie B is going nuts. Sandstorm is blaring. And Alabama just comes creeping back in. They get the late touchdown. They tie the game with the 2-point conversion. And Ty Simpson puts the team on his back, drives the Crimson Tide down the field, and gets the W in Columbia. Heartbreaking for South Carolina, heartbreaking for Shane Beamer, heartbreaking for Lenore Sellers, who laid it all on the line. This is one of those games that seemed like the trap game for Alabama. Alabama's off of 4 straight ranked opponent wins. You got Georgia. You got Tennessee last weekend. Who else was in there? I can't even remember. But it was one of the great runs, one of the great 4-game stretches in SEC history, and Alabama controlled it. Alabama has climbed into the top 5 rankings after that terrible loss to Florida State in the first game of the year. Now, they get this win in a trap game atmosphere, and they go into the bye week with everything in front of them. They're the favorites to win the SEC, as I said earlier. They will most likely be in Atlanta unless something goes completely awry, but this is the vintage Alabama that we have seen with under Nick Saban and not yet under Kalen DeBoer. Down the stretch, can he seal these games? Down the stretch, can he win when it counts, when it matters, when he's fighting for a playoff spot? Last year we saw them go 9-3, and then with that 4th loss in the bowl game against Michigan, Kalen DeBoer had yet to prove himself, and I think he has emphatically done so thus far throughout the season. So, huge win for Alabama, huge win for Kalen DeBoer. This program is well on its way to the SEC Championship and into the playoff. They're a legit national title contender. Everybody's looking at Ohio State, Indiana, and even now Texas A&M, these undefeated teams with insane resumes and just look like juggernauts. Alabama's right there. You can wipe that Florida State game from your memory because it's like it never happened. This Alabama team is completely different. Ty Simpson's playing like one of the best quarterbacks in the entire country. He's the Heisman favorite right now. Ryan Williams, Jeremy Bernard, these guys are coming along as receivers. Ryan Williams isn't dropping the ball near as much. And then Caden Proctor, probably the best football player in America, is doing his thing on the offensive line. He's the leader of that team. He's getting carries. He's getting catches. He is the heart and soul, the heartbeat of that team. But Ty Simpson, man, what a leader at the quarterback position. So we got a few games else to wrap up. Just some quick notes from these. Miami-Stanford. Miami runs away with it 42-7 after Stanford scored early and held Miami to no points through the first quarter. But man, oh man, the headline out of this game, Miami's uniforms were the worst thing I've ever seen. That digital camo should never see a football field, a Miami football field, ever again. Ever again. One quick note about this Miami team, other than their uniforms. Carson Beck and this Hurricanes team have yet to leave the state of Florida this season. Every single game, whether it's in Miami or at an opponent's stadium, they have all been in the state of Florida. So we'll see how this Hurricane team can handle a travel game at an away atmosphere that is a little bit better than some of the ones that they have played thus far. UCLA, Indiana. Indiana is one of the best teams in the country. I think Ohio State, everybody has that golden standard of them as them being the juggernaut, them being the team that you have to go through. But man, Fernando Mendoza should be the Heisman favorite in my opinion. I think he's the best quarterback in the country. He is playing the best ball out of anybody. 15 for 22, 168 yards, 3 touchdowns, 1 interception. That's 24 total touchdowns on the year, 3 interceptions on the year. Indiana owned UCLA. And UCLA came in on their high horse with all this momentum, 3-0. They called themselves 3-0 because it was a brand new season after they got rid of their head coach. And they've got Jerry Neuheisel calling plays in the offense. Nico Iamaleava is running all over the place. He's throwing the ball all over the yard. And Indiana just comes in there and shuts them down. I mean, Nico looked terrible, but I got to give myself some credit. I was stuck in traffic on the way to Nashville, and I'm sitting there behind an 18-wheeler, and the license plate read Indiana at the top, an Indiana license plate, and I'm not going to tell you all the numbers because that'd be illegal, but it had a 52 in it. And I said on video that Indiana would score 52 points and have a massive win over UCLA. I think the line was 25.5, 26, 26.5, somewhere in that range. And they won 56-6. They scored 4 more points than my projection. They covered the spread. So shout out to the Hammy show. Big time win. So I got stuck in traffic for literally 2 hours and 15 minutes to go 5 miles. It was brutal. But if I have to go sit in traffic for 2 hours and 15 minutes to go just 5 miles every single week to come out positive on the books, I think I might have to sign myself up. Moving right along, Washington and Illinois. Illinois came in, Brett Bielema and Luke Altmaier having a great season. They've had a few tough losses, including that one to Indiana when Indiana just absolutely boat raced them. But the Fighting Illini have been a good football team, and it's been tough to see them struggle throughout the year. But Washington just owned them. They just owned them from top to bottom. Jed Fish is an excellent head coach, and he will be a name in this coaching carousel. Washington should be ranked. That's my main note from this game. It's a travesty that Washington is not in the top 25, and that brings me to the next game, Minnesota and Iowa. Iowa, another team that boat races this weekend, 41-3 over Minnesota, and the same thing goes for the Hawkeyes. They should be a ranked team. It is a travesty that these two teams in the Big Ten are not in the top 25. Absolute BS. Then you got Auburn and Arkansas. Hugh Freeze saves his job for another week, but I'll get into it in just a sec. I don't think it's for very long. I think this Auburn team has problems bigger than just one game. And I respect the Auburn program for not just making a decision. Obviously, he got the win, so they're probably not going to fire him. But if they were to lose this game and they were to fire him, I hate that move because it's not all about just one game. I get that if you lose this one game, then it's, you got to move on, and the fan base has lost complete trust in you, just like they did at Penn State and at LSU. But I think Florida handled their way in the most perfect way with Billy Napier. You get a win against Mississippi State, but it's been bigger than that. They had to get to the bye week before Georgia, and Florida then makes the move. That's what these type of teams should do. I would honestly respect Auburn if they fired Hugh Freeze after they beat Arkansas this weekend. So I don't know what's going to happen there, but I do think Hugh Freeze loses his job. If not next week, then in a few weeks. Arkansas, another team on this coaching carousel, fired Sam Pittman earlier this year. Auburn, most likely on the coaching carousel here shortly. So that was some major SEC football. Now time for one of my favorite parts of this show. Poor Ole me. Poor Ole me, Brian Kelly. Poor Ole me, Brian Kelly. You get out of the LSU job and you just make a boatload of money. This comes from my good friends at CFB News Today. One of the craziest stats you'll ever hear. In his massive, massive buyout, Brian Kelly, per second, will make 31 cents. Per minute, he will make $18.46. Per hour, he will make $1,100. Per day, he will make $26,582. Per week, he will make $186,000. $186,000 per week. And per month, he will make $808,333 per week. Per month. That is until 2031. So, Brian Kelly, for the next 6 years, you will make those stats right there. Poor Ole me. Poor Ole me. You don't have to deal with the craziness of the college football landscape. Poor Ole me. You don't have to deal with the Cajuns calling for your job. Poor Ole me. You get to go sit on the beach and play golf like you did all summer when you didn't care about this LSU job. Poor Ole me, Brian Kelly. You just make more money than God himself. Poor Ole me, Brian Kelly. But now, ladies and gentlemen, let's get to the moment that you've all been waiting for, the coaching carousel. Like I said earlier, this will be the greatest coaching carousel, the craziest one we have ever seen in college football history. This offseason will call for more names in job markets than we have ever seen the likings of. So what I'm going to do here is not who I think will be there, but who I think best fits. So this isn't a completely opinion-based segment. This is not according to any rumors, not according to any inside information that I've heard. No, this is just who I think fits best. And then maybe we'll get into a little bit of who will end up there. But these are the names that I think fit best at each school. I'm going to go through them real quick, say them all for the social clip, make it sound good, make it look good on Instagram, but then we're going to break it all down. So, the best fits for each coaching hire. At LSU, the number one job on the market at this moment, I think it's Joe Brady. At Penn State, you got Jeff Brom. At Florida, Eli Drinkwitz. Oklahoma State, Eric Morris, North Texas head coach. Virginia Tech, Buster Faulkner. Love that name. Arkansas, Ryan Grubb. Stanford, you heard it here first, James Franklin. UCLA, Holman Wiggins. A name maybe under the radar, but a name you need to keep your eye on. Auburn, John Summerall, the Tulane head coach. He's a huge head coaching target. And Florida State, Alex Golish. So you'll notice at the end of that, I add Auburn and Florida State. That is predictions based. That is, I think their jobs will be open by the end of 2025 football season. And by that metric, I think those two names would be the best fit for Auburn and for Florida State, respectively. So let's go back to the top, break down LSU. LSU is the greatest job in this market right now, and I will tell you why. Because of the support, because of the community, and because of the dollars that will come with it. You have NIL money at LSU. You have the facilities. You have the staff. Everybody in the college football world would kill to be the offensive coordinator, the defensive coordinator, the wide receivers coach, the strength coach at LSU. Brian Kelly made the fatal mistake of getting rid of a guy like Tommy Moffitt. Tommy Moffitt was everything to LSU. He was there through it all, through all three national championships with Saban, with Les Miles, with Ed Orgeron. He was there. He was the key factor. He was the common denominator between it all. And you get rid of a guy like Tommy Moffitt, who bled purple and gold, who bled LSU. He died for LSU, and he would die for those players, and Brian Kelly gets rid of him. That's part of the reason that he was never bought in to the program, and the fans weren't bought into him. So, this is why you make the move to Joe Brady. Joe Brady was in the system. If you remember correctly, what happened in 2019? Well, we saw the greatest college football team ever take the field. Joe Burrow was the quarterback. Your quarterback's coach and your third down offensive coordinator, whatever his technical title was, he was basically a co-offensive coordinator, Joe Brady. Joe Brady's had his stints in the NFL. He's now the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. He's made Josh Allen one of the great quarterbacks of all time. You bring Joe Brady back, a man who understands LSU football, a man who has been in that building before, a man who has won a national championship with that program. You bring him back, and you will never have the Brian Kelly problem. You will never have a man who is not bought into LSU. You will never have a man who is not bought into by the fans. Joe Brady is the best fit at LSU. I think they're dumb if they go any other way. Obviously, they would try for Nick Saban. He's not coming back to college football. They're going to try for Lane Kiffin. I think Lane is probably off to Florida. I wish he'd stay in Ole Miss, but we'll get to that. Joe Brady is your guy. Trust me, LSU needs Joe Brady like they need water. So, LSU, best fit, Joe Brady. Next, Penn State. Penn State is one of those crazy jobs, and we've all heard it. James Franklin comes to Penn State from Vanderbilt in the wake of one of the craziest college football scandals we have ever seen. And he brings Penn State to national relevance first, and then to national championship contenders. That was who James Franklin was. This is beside the point. Do I think they got rid of him too early? Yes. However, if you want another guy like that, that will not just bring you to national relevance, not just keep you in the national championship conversation, but will win you national championships, it's Jeff Brom. Brom is the head coach at Louisville, and he's one of the great offensive masterminds in the game. He's very underrated, but look what he's done at quarterback. Tyler Shuck, he made him a top 3 NFL draft round pick. Who from Louisville besides Lamar Jackson does that? Lamar Jackson is just a special talent. Old Jeff Brom, he made Tyler Shuck who he is. Right now, he's got Miller Moss there. Right now, Miller Moss just came off a win against Miami, upsetting the number 2 ranked Hurricanes. Brom is the guy for Penn State. Because at Penn State, you're going to have the talent acquisition that you want. You can recruit anybody. You're in the running. Jeff Brom should be your guy. Jeff Brom is a quarterback whisperer. You will have the talent acquisition at Penn State. You're one of the top programs, one of the top jobs, one of the top atmospheres. You've got a great stadium. You've got a great fan base. So you will get whoever you want in the recruiting game and the transfer portal game. But you have to have the developmental mind, and that's Jeff Brom. One of the crazy things in college football is to be a head coach, you're not just a coach that can out-scheme the other coach across the sidelines. No, you are a general manager. You are everything and anything involved in being this figurehead for a massive, massive brand. That's what we've seen the problem with at UNC with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick thought he could come in there with a far inferior roster because it's North Carolina and compete because he's a genius schemer. He could out-scheme these people. Well, at the NFL level, you've got coaches that, yeah, they're just great masterminds, but their players are all equal talent. They're all just the best in the game. They're the top, they're the top 1,500 athletes in the world on all 32 rosters. Each person on that 53-man roster is the best athlete in the world. So you have to have that coach that can just out-scheme you. That's what Bill Belichick is. He's not a recruiter. Jeff Brom is a recruiter. He can get talent in the transfer portal, but then he can get talent in the recruiting game out of high school. And then he can get that talent to their next level, to their ceiling. He can get the most out of them. That's what he's done at Louisville. That's what he will do at Penn State. He is the best fit. Penn State, Jeff Brom, mark it. Florida, Eli Drinkwitz. Here's why. They're going to go for Lane. They're going to go offer him all of this money, $80 million, 6 years, $13.3 million a year. Whatever it is. Yeah, he might be good for the job. But why I like Eli is because of what he's done at Missouri. Think about what he walked into at Missouri. He walked into a program that was struggling, that was in the SEC, that was borderline a dumpster fire. Blue, you want to say hey? Let's say hey. But what Eli has done at Missouri is completely revitalized a program, taken them to one of the top programs in the SEC. In an SEC and a college football landscape that is up for grabs, up for anybody to grab. You see, how the SEC works is anybody can win it. The fact that Vanderbilt is a top 10 team and even top 5 in the SEC odds to win the conference championship, you couldn't have dreamed of that. You could have told me that 2 years ago and I would have called you insane. But that's the reality of college football at this moment. You can get in that transfer quarterback and you can absolutely change your program forever. So Eli has done so at Missouri. You got Cook at quarterback last year. You get Pabula this year, who now is hurt, unfortunately. But you're constantly in this relevant program, in this relevant tier of the SEC. Bless me. However, what you can do with those quarterbacks, with this team, look at the defense too. We'll touch on this too. Damon Wilson from Georgia transfers over to Missouri, is one of their great players on that defense. You got Zion Young on the defensive line. You can get these transfer guys in and completely change your program. On the flip side, what has Florida done? Well, Florida's a way better job than Missouri. But what do they have? Well, they've got a heck of a state to recruit from. They've got a very good argument to be a top target for transfer portal players. You get DJ Lagway. Whoever takes this job most likely gets DJ Lagway unless he chooses to leave as well. But you get Eli in there, and he's an offensive mind that DJ will probably want to stick around for, probably want to be developed by this guy to get him to the NFL level. And so you might be asking, well, that's exactly what Lane is, except he's better. Well, here's why, and this is why this opinionated segment is a little different. But I want Lane at Ole Miss. I think Ole Miss is the perfect place for him. I think it's the perfect spot for his family, for his kids that are at Ole Miss. I mean, I think Lane is Oxford right now. And if he stays in Oxford, it's not like he can't win a national championship. He goes to Florida, of course he can. He's in the top program. But who's to say Ole Miss can't? If they make the SEC championship, which they very well could, not even just this year, but multiple years down the road. If you just make the SEC championship, you're in the college football playoff. This year, they will most likely be in the college football playoff without even playing for the SEC championship. You get into the playoff, anything can happen. So who's to say Ole Miss can't win the national championship? Who's to say that you just go to Florida so you can get this national championship and you can't do it at Ole Miss? You can. That's the reality of college football today. Now, he can stay at Ole Miss. He will get paid. He will have to get paid. Ole Miss will have to pay him a renegotiated contract that makes him one of the top 5 highest paid coaches in the college football. I want Lane at Ole Miss because he can do it. And what will happen to Lane at Ole Miss if he stays? If he maybe not even wins a national title, but takes them to the playoff, gets an SEC championship or two. You know what happens? They build statues for him. They name streets after him. They might name the freaking stadium after him if he renovates it and gets the money in for that. That's what Lane can be at Ole Miss. Do I think he can replicate it at Florida? Sure. Who's to say he can't? But you want Lane at Ole Miss. It makes college football that much better. You want Eli at Florida. I genuinely think Eli is the most perfect fit for Florida. Better than Lane. And I know everybody is probably going to contradict me, but I think Eli is better fit for it, and Ole Miss is a better fit for Lane. So, here we go. Moving right along, Oklahoma State. This one's an interesting one. Eric Morris, head coach at North Texas. He's a hot, up-and-coming name in the G5 league. He is got some stuff going for him. He played at Texas Tech under Mike Leach, and then he went back to Texas Tech for a short stint where he coached alongside Cliff Kingsbury. He's one of those hot-shot offensive minds, a young guy. And at Oklahoma State, he'd be a perfect fit. At Oklahoma State, you had Mike Gundy, who was one of the longest tenured coaches in college football at the time of his firing. He came in young, he came in a hotshot, and he proved himself. And he won a lot of football games doing so. Oklahoma State isn't going for this next coordinator or next coordinator to be the sort of pseudo like a Dan Lanning jump from coordinator at Georgia to Oregon, or Kirby even from Alabama to Georgia. Like, no, I think they want to go the Florida route, which they did with Billy Napier. They want to get that hot up-and-coming G5 coach and put him at the Power 4 level and try and win some conference championships and make the playoff. Like, I think that's what Oklahoma State wants, because they want a dude that is an established head coach that they can trust, who can lead a program, as Eric Morris is doing so at North Texas. And if he does that, if he gets into Oklahoma State, he'll be another long-tenured coach at Oklahoma State for the Cowboys, and he will bleed orange and black for the rest of his life, just like Mike Gundy did. And it's an unfortunate ending to Gundy's career, but I think Eric Morris is the guy for the job at Oklahoma State. Keep your eye on a name like Eric Morris. This one's my favorite one I think I have listed. Virginia Tech, Buster Faulkner. Buster Faulkner is one of the hottest offensive coordinators in college football. He has got the name, he's got the stuff, he's got the scheme, he's got the players at Georgia Tech, and he is making the most of it. Buster Faulkner is one of the best offensive minds in college football, and why he's not being talked about for some of these higher market jobs. I get it, LSU, Florida, Penn State, they don't want the coordinator they don't want this hot up-and-coming coordinator. They want this head coach, just how Oklahoma State does as well. But Virginia Tech needs to go for a coordinator like that. They need just somebody who gives that spark, who's just a fiery dude and can compete in the ACC. The ACC is such an odd conference because what was the Clemsons and the Florida States that ran the conference, it's completely changed. It's flipped on its head. Miami has revitalized their program. Georgia Tech is fighting for ACC championships. Louisville is in this argument. Virginia is in this argument. This league is wide open, and who's to say Virginia Tech can't compete with that? Virginia Tech is one of those historic programs that's just always kind of there in college football. You've got the Mike Vick years. You've got the Coach Beamer multiple years. Buster Faulkner can provide that for Virginia Tech. Now, if Buster Faulkner goes to Virginia Tech and balls out, he probably moves on to an even bigger job, an SEC or a Big Ten job. But I think for right now, for a short-term answer, I think Buster Faulkner is the perfect fit for Virginia Tech. My only problem with this one is Buster Faulkner loves the city of Athens, which that sounds weird. Well, Buster Faulkner is the offensive coordinator for Georgia Tech, but his family stayed in Athens because when he was helping out as an analyst on the Georgia staff, his family was growing up in Athens, and they stayed there. So moving them to Blacksburg, Virginia, is a bit of a tough move. However, I really think Buster Faulkner would be money. It would be perfect for that Virginia Tech job, being in the legendary reign of head coach, in the legendary wake of head coach Frank Beamer. I mean, Brent Pry had an unfortunate go at Virginia Tech, but I really think Buster Faulkner could be an answered prayer up there in Blacksburg. Enter Sandman. Enter Buster. Arkansas. Ryan Grubb. This one's a fun one. Maybe not a name that a lot of people have talked about on this head coaching search, but Ryan Grubb is another up-and-coming coordinator. What he's done at Alabama, he has completely reinvented Ty Simpson. From that Florida State game to where that offense looked stagnant and could not get anything going, Ryan Grubb comes from Washington with Kalen DeBoer and has flipped Alabama on its head to be this sort of really fun offense with Ty Simpson at quarterback. I think if you get Ryan Grubb to Arkansas, you get him with Talon Green in that last year, I believe. He's got 1 year left of eligibility, maybe 2. But you get him with Talon Green. And, Blue, why are you crying? You don't like Ryan Grubb going to Arkansas? Well, I'm sorry. He's going to Arkansas. Or he's at least the best fit. But here, let me tell you something. I'll tell you why Ryan Grubb at Arkansas. Arkansas needs a coordinator. They don't need a head coach. Blue, you can get down now. I'm sorry. Excuse me. Ryan Grubb goes to Arkansas. He takes over after the Sam Pittman departure. I think Grubb would be an exciting head coach in the SEC because he's been here now. He's been here. It might not be this longest stint as a coordinator under Kalen DeBoer, just for 2 years. But I think he really would be one of those fun, exciting names to see at a program like Arkansas. I think it's a perfect fit for Grubb. Like I said with the Talon Green stuff, Talon Green is a special talent. Besides Ty Simpson, he is probably the best quarterback in the SEC. It's unfortunate because Arkansas, the team around him, just stinks so bad. But Talon Green is an exciting college football player, and you get an offensive mind with him, and man, oh man, would there be some fireworks. Yeah, Arkansas in year 1 of the Grubb era, if this were to happen, they're not competing for the SEC championship. They're not trying, they're not even worried about a bowl game. They want to get to a bowl game. 6-6 is their goal, but that's like their kind of ceiling in year 1. But Ryan Grubb really could make Talon Green a special talent, and he can make him an exciting team. You get a guy like him at head coach with a quarterback like Talon Green, and yeah, you're fighting for 6-6. You're fighting for a bowl game, but on your schedule in the SEC, 9 games now, you're going to have those super high program or high-end programs come to town. You're going to get LSU at home. You're going to get a Bama game in there. You're going to get an A&M, a Georgia, like over the next couple of years. And with those 2 guys in your system, you could go in there and upset them. Like, that's the perfect duo, I think, for an upset. And that's what Arkansas wants to be right now. They just want to get to that level. Like, they want to be like a Mississippi State where Mississippi State is in year 2 of the Jeff Lebby era. Like, they want that by year 2. They're not. You don't have to, as Grubb, you don't have to go to Arkansas and win a national championship by year 3. No, 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 no. What you do at Arkansas is you get to a bowl game the first year. The second year you get to 7-5, 8-4. You're a frisky team in the SEC, and then by year 3, yeah, maybe you can be in the SEC championship conversation. And you might not win it that year, but you can be in that conversation. You could start SEC play like 3-0, maybe 4-0. You can have that fun, frisky team. That's why I think Ryan Grubb can do that. I think he's the guy for the job at Arkansas. He is my best fit. Arkansas, Ryan Grubb. This one's a fun one too. Stanford, James Franklin. So obviously we all know James Franklin. Penn State's on this list. He's the guy that got fired from Penn State, as we well know. But Stanford is one of those schools that if they realized it, if they wanted to go all in, and they put all their eggs in one basket with Andrew Luck there as their GM of the athletic program, what you could do with James Franklin as your head coach and all this money coming into football, you would actually run the country. And you might think I'm crazy, but hear me out. Stanford has more money than anybody in the world. As a university, they have literally more money than anybody. They could literally let their students go to school for free for the next 185 years, and they would still be a billion-dollar university. This school is insane, and the money behind it is insane. Now, they have a lot of eggs in the academics basket, and I'm obviously not discounting that. But what you could do with just a portion of this money in the football program, you would immediately jump to a powerhouse in college football. And with a head coach like James Franklin, you will be a powerhouse. You could win national championships. What happened at Penn State, he can never win the big one. He can never win the conference championship, the national championship. With the money that Stanford puts behind you, James Franklin will win a national championship. If they go all in on football, that's a big if. But I think James Franklin will be a great fit at Stanford. Look what he did at Penn State, okay? Everybody's going to talk about the record against top 10, top 25 opponents. Well, ladies and gentlemen, what he did at Penn State was nothing short of amazing. He walked in there at the worst time you could ever walk into a college football program. After a scandal that shook that campus, that school, that town for years to come, he flipped that on its head and made the most of it. He made Penn State a national powerhouse. He could get to Stanford and with money behind him do the exact same thing. So James Franklin, you're my perfect fit for the Stanford Cardinal. UCLA. Now, this is a name that not a lot of people are looking at. Holman Wiggins. Wiggins has been at Texas A&M as a wide receiver coach, and now he's the co-offensive coordinator. What is Texas A&M doing this year? Well, they got Casey Concepcion. They got Craver at wide receiver, two of the best in the game, probably the best wide receiver tandem in the country, in competition at least with Ohio State. This dude is a recruiting genius. Now, Texas A&M has a ton of money, and if he goes to UCLA, he might not have near as much. But if he gets a little bit of buy-in from that alumni, from that fan base, and he gets some money, he can go out and recruit that West Coast. Oregon has dominated West Coast recruiting. USC's kind of climbing back. Washington's getting guys. UCLA has fallen to the bottom of the pack. You get a guy like Holman Wiggins in there. You got all these speedy California wide receivers. You got all these speedy California edge defenders. What Wiggins could do with these guys at UCLA is scary. You get a quarterback in there. He recruits you well. And this offensive scheme from Texas A&M is nothing to it is something to write home about. He is a stud play caller for this Texas A&M team. I think with some money behind him and the recruiting prowess that he has, he could get some special talents to UCLA, and they could come back to a relevant team, whereas now they've fallen off completely. Maybe that's with Jerry Neuheisel as your offensive coordinator. Maybe you keep him there. I would love the Jerry Neuheisel fit at UCLA as well, but I think Wiggins is your guy at head coach. You keep Neuheisel in that offensive coordinator slot. You've got Nico Iamaleava. You've got a world talent at quarterback. If you get some receivers around him, and Wiggins is your guy to coach him up, Neuheisel's your guy to call the plays, you could do something special at UCLA. You really could. I really firmly believe that. So Wiggins, keep an eye out on that name. Nobody's talking about him. But Wiggins to UCLA. Auburn, I think this one's a layup. And I think it's the best fit. I think it's going to happen. I think it will happen. This is one of those schools, like I said I'd get to them, Auburn and Florida State, that have not fired their head coaches yet, but who I think these teams will fire their coaches. And I wanted to talk a little bit about them and who would be the best fit for those jobs. This is John Summerall at Auburn. Auburn needs to go to the G5 and get a head coach. You've got to find somebody that has an established resume of leading a program. And I think if you go to Tulane and you look at John Summerall, what he's done with that program, he's the guy for the job. And everybody's going to come at me and say, well, they went for Hugh Freeze after he coached in the SEC and was successful, and then gets into the scandal, and then he goes to Liberty and brings Liberty back to national relevance, fighting, what would be if it was a 12-team playoff 2 years ago, Liberty would have been the playoff team, and Hugh Freeze was their head coach. Or sorry, he wasn't then, but he brought them to that level that when Liberty was really good and they came back, and that was Hugh Freeze's doing before he left and got the Auburn job. However, what Hugh Freeze has is baggage. He's got all that baggage of the scandals at Ole Miss. He's got all this baggage and all of these crazy ideas, and everybody's talking about how he's golfing all summer and he's not focused on the Auburn team. He's not the fit for Auburn. And I think that's why they'll fire him, but I also think that's why Summerall is. Summerall is a fit. He's dedicated his life to Tulane football, and he's completely brought them back to the map. Tulane football, after they left the SEC in the 60s, was toast. They were washed. They weren't going to do anything. And Tulane has been brought back by John Summerall. So give me John Summerall to Auburn. I love that fit. I think it's a great fit. I think he's a great coach. And I think Auburn, somewhat can compete for SEC championships and get to the playoff and be one of those frisky teams that Auburn should be, to be quite frank. Florida State, another national powerhouse that I think will lose their head coach in Mike Norvell. It's a massive buyout, but I think it happens. And I think the one guy for the job, this is my personal preference, like I said, this is my best fit, is Alex Golesh. You're like, what? What? Alex Golesh, yeah, he's an Ohio State alum. He's not going to Ohio State anytime soon. But what he's done at USF is insane. USF is awesome this year. They beat Florida. They lose to Miami, but they've got everything in front of them with the group of 5 champions and going to the 12-team playoff. They obviously lose to Memphis last weekend, and those chances decrease a little. But Alex Golesh has taken USF, a program that ranked last in the country in the FBS just 3 years ago. That was USF. Alex Golesh has come in and flipped that program on its head. I think he's an awesome coach. But this is my main reason for why he's the perfect fit at Florida State. It's Florida. It's the Florida connection. What he's done at USF is he's brought guys to USF that had no business coming there. He got into the Florida recruiting game. He got some talent. Look at their quarterback, Byron Brown. You think if Golesh moves the head coaching jobs, he moves to Florida State? You think Byron Brown is staying at USF? No. Byron Brown follows Alex Golesh to Florida State. Byron Brown is balling out at USF. He will ball out at Florida State if he follows Alex Golesh. I think this is the perfect fit. And I think it's largely in part to those two guys. I think it's Golesh at the head coaching, and it's because you get Byron Brown with him. And then you get the Florida aspect, and you have a head coach that has coached in this state. He understands the importance of being, the top program in the state. He's not at USF, but he's one of the better programs. He's better than Florida. He's better than Florida State right now. He's probably the second best program in the state behind Miami. He can get Florida State back to Florida relevance. The year that Mike Norvell had last season is inexcusable in my opinion. You go 2-10 after going 13-0 13-0 until the ACC until the Orange Bowl, when you get absolutely boat raced and Georgia breaks you and you absolutely shat the bed in the next year and you go 2-10, like that's inexcusable. I don't care if you won 13 games the year before. I don't care if you got snubbed from the playoff. 2-10 is inexcusable. And then you come in and you've been given this second chance. You get a transfer quarterback in, dude, and you beat Alabama and all this momentum's going your way and the wheels fall off. You fall off the wagon with it. Like, you got to get rid of Mike Norvell, and I think Golish is the better head coach in the state of Florida, which is insane, and he would be a better head coach than Mike Norvell at Florida State. So there's my 2 cents on the coaching carousel. Those are my best fits. Like I said, it's an opinionated piece, an opinionated segment, so don't take this to write home to your mom about. Now, this is just who I think is the best fit for each job. All of these jobs are the top marquee jobs that have come open, along with Auburn and Florida State added in there because I think those are inevitable. I didn't get to guys like UAB who have lost their coach and all that stuff. Like, I'm not getting into all that yet. That's off-season talk. I wanted to focus on these top 8 jobs that have already come open and then Auburn and Florida State because I think they will. So, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Hammy Show, man. I appreciate you following along. It's been an awesome episode. What a year of college football. We're going to have all of the content right here on this show, on this YouTube page at The Hammy Show. Find us on all the social channels at _Hammy Show on Instagram and then at The Hammy Show on X and TikTok. It's the best in the business. You're not going to get anything else. We got a little sense of humor. We got a little bit of opinion, but we're going to give you the facts. We are the best show in college football. We're just getting started up, but I need your help. So hit that subscribe button on YouTube. Hit that follow button on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts. Hit that follow button on Twitter, on Instagram, on TikTok. We really appreciate it. You keep this going, and we will be cruising right along. And I really appreciate everybody following along. So I'm going to have a lot more of this content coming your way. I really appreciate you all following along. And we will see you next time on The Hammy Show. Ladies and gentlemen, ham it up.